I really wrestled with this morning's talk, but lately that seems to be just up for me. So we'll see what happens this morning, and you guys are always kind and forgiving, so go along with the ride with me. So let God go. Well, I'll explain where I got that from. There's a story, because there's always stories, usually when I come here with anything I'm telling you. So we'll put let God go aside for a minute, because I'm going to come back around to it. I'm going to start with Taoism. In the Tao, it is said that the Tao that can be spoken is not the true Tao. So it's beyond words of description. And Taoism is an ancient Chinese philosophy centered on living in harmony with the Tao, and the Tao is the natural, ineffable force underlying everything, all existence. All right, so now I'm going to do a hard turn here, which I always do to you guys, you know. So about 36 years ago or so, I started participating in a 12-step program. And it was there that I was introduced to the concept of a higher power, or a power greater than myself. And it was suggested that it was God as I understood God, but I didn't understand God. But that was okay. The attraction here for me was that no one was telling me that I had to believe one thing, only that I needed to become willing to open my mind. That was not at all like the religious tradition that I'd been raised in, which always, I emphasize always, expressed certainty as long as you fulfilled certain requirements. But here in this situation, I was being asked to become willing to step into the unknown as an approach to God or a higher power. Not from the certainty or the dogma, but from curiosity. Or as both the Buddha and Jesus said to their followers, do these things and you will see. Live this way, you'll understand. See for yourselves. So, this allowed me to begin to think in different ways. Not like I needed a permission to do that, but in a way I did. Because I'm a product of where I came from, as we all are, or what was told to me. So this allowed me to begin to think in different ways, quite different from that upbringing and the education I came from. And to tell you the truth, while you think that would be exciting, it wasn't. It was uncomfortable. It was even a bit scary. Uncomfortable because, we are trained to have the right answers, to be certain, to be sure. Plus, who likes being wrong, right? Scary for some of the same reasons, but even more because often what we believe becomes a part of who we are or believe we are. Does it make sense? It's how we see ourselves. It's part of our identity. So some years ago, after I had been practicing and doing a lot of things within the 12-step group, some years ago, my wife Jane and I were talking, and I don't remember what we were talking about, but I remember that all of a sudden she commented to me that I could no longer call myself a Christian. And I started to protest. I was like, what do you mean? But she said to me, if I believed what I've been telling her over these years, then I didn't qualify to be called that anymore. Now I was about to disagree again, but she shut me right down with this one question that she asked me. She said, do you believe Jesus died for our sins? Well, I didn't. So I said no, at least not for them. But she didn't need any more. She just said, case closed. And please note, I don't wish to offend or disrespect anyone's belief system. I don't believe that this is a right or wrong either or choice. And I could talk a lot about that, but I'm not going to go there right now, so don't worry about it, because we'll get out of here before noon. Because there's a lot I could go into this. But anyway, so Jane said case closed. So why did this trouble me? I mean, I'm going to tell you, it did trouble me. A lot. It troubled me because, in truth, I liked Jesus, even if I didn't particularly care for what organized religion had done with him. And by the way, you've heard me say this before, he never asked to be worshiped or put on a throne. All he asked was that we follow him, do these things. So at the time that Jane and I had this conversation, it felt like, a bit like I had just dissed Jesus. Almost like I betrayed him. But here's the thing. It wasn't true, but it felt true to me. You know what I mean? It felt true. But fortunately, thanks to the program I was working, I had learned that feelings aren't facts. Sometimes they make you feel that way, but they're not. So I realized, all right, that's how I feel, but that's not necessarily so. I'm not betraying anyone. So I reminded myself of this, and that's when the real work began. I had to allow myself to let go of something I thought I was since my early childhood. And that is not so easy. It felt dangerous and deeply unsettling. I wasn't blissed out. I would have liked to have been, but I wasn't. I felt like a ship cut loose from its moorings. I didn't know. Now, here's the thing that I find interesting. I found it interesting that I was writing this and kind of processing the whole thing, and it's a bit baffling. Even though I left the religion, I'm referring to many, many years earlier, and no longer believed in much of what I've been taught. This still felt dangerous and scary and really hard. Why? I'll get to that in a second. Well, during this period, I also came face to face with some of my own woundedness from my earlier years and the education I had been put through. And it was an invitation to allow some healing to take place, which I did. And this required my letting go of some of the things that I didn't even know I was holding on to. I had no idea I was holding on to these things. And thanks to some good professional help, as well as the continued participation in the 12-step program, all of this eventually led me to the belly of the beast. I went back to school and I went to seminary. The last thing I ever would have wanted to do in New York City, which I swore 20 years earlier I'd never return to. So that was the belly of the beast. Okay, so where am I going with this? I'll get there, I promise I will. So during the summer a few years ago, it's probably more than just a few years ago. Time is really weird, you know. You get older, it just kind of collapses. But there's at least a few years ago. Anyway, a few years back, Jane had suggested we drive up to Jacob's Pillow for an outdoor dance performance called Inside Out. And truthfully, when she suggested that we go, I hadn't really been all that enthused about it. But little could I know that the performance that I was about to see was going to touch me so deeply, or that it would take me back to that earlier time, the one I just told you all about. But it did. So just before the dancers began their performance, the choreographer of the piece explained what we were about to see and hear. And as the dancers began, she read a quote from an author that I wasn't familiar with. But the words struck home as I listened. It spoke of an experience that will shatter you that will shatter you into 1,000 pieces, but that this shattering is necessary and well worth it. Because it is only when that shattering occurs that you truly enter into life itself. And it is through doing this that paradoxically you find God. However, this God will be quite different than what or who you had believed in before. So, as I sat there watching the dances and heard this reading, I found my eyes tearing up. In my chest, there was an ache of understanding and recognition. And it surprised me as this all happened almost immediately. There was no thought to it. No thought at all. It came upon me is the only way I can describe it. It came upon me. And then as I sat watching the dancers, I understood in a way that I had no words for. I still have no words for. But what I got from it was that my experience back then, the one I just shared with you, was necessary for me to have had in order for me to find my way to what became one of my life's callings, which was my work with hospice and the time I spent with the dying. So sitting there in that late afternoon sun, I had a major aha moment. And it made sense to me. I saw that there had been a pattern in my life, a path, an intelligence. And by the way, that intelligence was not necessarily mine. And as I sat there and felt this and recognized this, I realized that that intelligence had been at work in my own life, was also at work in all of life, which of course includes every human being, every creature, everything on the planet. I didn't know what to even refer to it as, but I finally settled on infinite organizing intelligence. But it fits the bill for my idea of a higher power, or God, as I understood God, and I still don't understand God. But I console myself with the fact that if I understood it, it wouldn't be it. I'm not that smart. But in my opinion, God is our name. We came up with it, along with a lot of other ones. Because we humans need ways to relate and identify, and a name gives us something to hang on to. And therein lies a trap. When we name something, it becomes familiar, and we define and think we know it. Now, that can work well for things like a car or a refrigerator, or a guitar. But language is limited, and that's why the Tao says what it does. And C.S. Lewis, the idea that God is not a divine idea, it has to be shattered time after time. He emphasized that our mental ideas of God are often illusions that God must shatter to reveal God's true nature. So obviously, this is where I've been going with this morning's talk. So what I am suggesting here is letting God go is about releasing our opinions and our beliefs or disbeliefs. It's walking into a new territory, opening to possibilities. It's taking down some walls. It is a personal journey, and an important one as far as I'm concerned. And I come to that conclusion based on 25 years of working with people at the end of life. God is our name, and if you like using that, that's fine. I mean, I do. It's brief. It's easy. It's to the point for me. But here's the thing. I did need to let go of what I had been told and taught and conditioned to believe that I associated with that name. I don't believe that. Remember this. Every age you have ever been in your life still lives inside of you. It's not gone. You could think of, I use trees as an analogy with rings. All of those pieces of us are in there. So what I discovered in doing this work was I needed to let go of what I had been taught and conditioned and believed. For me, that includes an 8-year-old who was taught some toxic theology that was very transactional and punishing. So some of my deepest healing work has been with that 8-year-old me. Today, he feels a lot better, and no surprise, I feel better too. One important lesson among many I learned from some of the hospice patients I have served is that some people who've been educated in certain faiths that they no longer believed in and had left ages ago were surprised to find some of those old fears from their childhood starting to push up. And what they were taught resurfaced. They had not let that God go. They didn't know they had to. So that was some of the work that we got to do together. And that's not easy. I don't want to mislead you. It's not easy, but in my opinion, it's necessary. So, one of my favorite sayings, I learned this when I first went to seminary. And the great thing about where I went is that, I had been raised in the Christian tradition and educated, 12 years of that education. This opened me up to things I had never known about, which we had to study all the faiths, Eastern, Western philosophies, Aboriginal, all kinds of stuff, which was fascinating. And I heard this from a Buddhist that I was in class with that I became friendly with. A finger pointing at the moon is not the moon. So, religion is one of our ways as human beings to point in the direction of something. The mistake that has caused a lot of misunderstanding and suffering is that we've often mistaken the finger for what it's pointing at. So for me, infinite organizing intelligence, my understanding of what is truly beyond me, but I see visible everywhere if I open my eyes. It's in the plants that are growing. It's in the trees. It's in how the cycles of nature work. It's in the sky. The intelligence that knows how to birth a star or divide a cell is in me, it's in you, it's in everything. And seeing things this way has changed the way I feel in this world. Every person I encounter, even the ones that annoy me, I know it's in there too. There is nowhere that it is not in the way I see things. You don't have to see it the way I do, but so I still use the old name, God, but it has little resemblance to the God I learned about in catechism, the Baltimore Catechism, which I don't think they teach from anymore. And actually, this is fresh up for me because I have retired from hospice, but I got a call last week from one of my colleagues, and they had a family member that was dying. And the family member had been raised Catholic. And he was about the same age as me. And she asked if I could go and see him. She and I had worked together for a good 20 years, so she knew I had helped a lot of people that had certain anxieties. Well, anyway, so I agreed to go see him. But I asked her a question. normally whenever I did an assessment for someone, I would ask, when I found out if they were Catholic, if they went to Catholic school. Because there's a difference. There is a difference. And so she didn't know. She couldn't tell me. But when I got there, he was non-responsive, and he was getting close to death. But his brother was there, and so I asked that question. And I said, did he go to Catholic school? Oh, yeah. So he gave me that. So I assumed it probably wasn't a good experience. So I just expressed to the brother, I said, I know he and I are of a similar age, so I know where they were teaching from. I said a lot of things were changed in the mid-'60s, when the ecumenical council came around. And a lot of things have really opened. They're not that way anymore, but I'm talking about the education this person had. So I have to believe that some of the anxiety and the fear he was experiencing was because of some of the things he was taught. And, the honoring and the respect of certain traditions are important because the kid in you still needs to have those assurances. And so, what I did is I did for him the Catholic rite of anointing. And he did die peacefully. It's not about what I believe, it's about what they believe. Always. I'm not there to convert anyone to anything. And I say the same to you. There are a lot of paths up the mountain. Once you get to the top, the view's the same. That's my philosophy on it, How you get there? So anyway, I got off the path here, but that's okay. You guys are very patient with me. Thank you. So let me conclude with a question for you. What would your perfect God be like? Why not start there? After you let go of the other one, either the one you believe in or don't believe in, and then allow that one in. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for listening.